Before we go to create table command, let's first discuss a little bit more in detail about data types. In the previous video, we learned how to create a table by writing create table command. If you remember, we write create table followed by the name of our table, customer here. Then we have to provide the name of our columns. The first column in our table here is name. Then we need to provide a data type for our column. The data type for our name column is varchar, and the character limit is 100. In other words, we just assign a data type to our column, and we actually tell SQL what type of data should be stored in this column. Our second column is state with char as data type, and our third column is age with the int data type. Now, let's discuss what is the difference between these three data types. First, we'll start with int, since it's easier to understand. Int is the short form of integer. Now, what's an integer? An integer is any positive or any negative number. But when we use int as a data type in SQL, this integer has a limit. Now, what is the limit of int data type in SQL? It ranges from -2 to the power of 31 to 2 to the power of 31 minus 1. So it's a pretty big limit. And any number within this int limit can be used. There are other integer data types in SQL Server, such as tiny int, small int, and big int. But in this beginner course, we will use only the simple int as a common practice. And I'll explain the other types of int in the advanced course later on. Now, every time we input some information into a computer, that information gets stored as bytes and takes up some memory in a computer system. When we use int as a data type, that integer value is stored in 4 bytes. Let's review what we've learned so far one more time. So in summary, int stands for integer. It can be any positive or negative number. It covers a big range of data, -2 to the power of 31 on the negative side, and +2 to the power of 31 minus 1 on the positive side. And it takes 4 bytes of memory. Now let's talk about varchar and char. Varchar is the short form of variable character. Every time we use varchar as our data type, there should be a character limit for it, and we write it inside parentheses. Our character limit is 100, as you can see here. Int data type didn't need to have a character limit specified for it. Char is the short form of character. So varchar is variable character and char is character. And our character limit is 10 here for char data type. Now, what is a character anyways? The majority of keys on your keyboard are characters. It can be either an alphabetical letter or a special character like a slash or a question mark. Or it can be a number like 1, 2, 3, and etc. A char is also a character, which means char and varchar are the same so far. Now, a question that might have come to your mind is that if we can use numbers on their varchar and char data types, Why do we even need a data type like int? This is a valid question. But before answering it, let me explain an important point. Every time we assign a character to varchar or char, it has to be written inside quotation marks. In SQL, it can be either single quotation or double quotations. It doesn't matter. And this is called a string, which is technically a sequence of characters. Now, when we write a number under varchar or char, it will become a string. So it won't be a regular number anymore. However, when we write a number under the int data type, it behaves like a number, which means we can perform mathematical operations on it. For example, we can multiply 2 by 3 and get 6. So this multiplication is possible because int is a number. Now, let's say if we want to do the same thing under varchar or char and multiply 2 by 3, our output will be 2 times 3, so computer will treat it as a series of characters or string, and what we see will be just 2x3. So no mathematical operation will be performed. Also, if we say a times 3, our output will be ax3, for example. Now, when can we write a number in varchar data type? For example, we have a username column and we can have our username like Emily underscore 123. As you can see, this username includes alphabetical letters, a special character like underscore, and numbers like 1, 2, 3. These 1, 2, 3 numbers won't be treated as regular numbers. Rather, they are part of the whole string Emily underscore 1, 2, 3. So this was the difference between varchar or char and the int data type. Now let's discuss the difference between varchar and char. So far, we learned we can assign a string to both. So what does make them different? The short answer is varchar is variable length, while char is fixed length. In other words, we need to choose between the two depending on how much space our string will take up in the memory. How a string is stored in the memory under varchar is defined by the number of characters plus 1. Now, this rule applies if we have up to 255 characters. After that, there will be a different rule, but in this course, I won't go too much in detail. How much space will be used to store a string under char is defined exactly by the character limit. For example, 10 in our case here. So a char field with the character limit of 10 takes up 10 bytes on disk, regardless of the string it holds. Now, let me give you a couple examples to help you better understand this concept. For example, we will keep the character limit as 100 for varchar and 10 for char. And then we will write a string like water on both sides. Now, let's see how this string will take up space in the memory. In the varchar case, our water string that has 5 characters will use 5 plus 1, 6 bytes in the memory. Therefore, here we have saved 94 bytes, 100 minus 6. If we take the same string under char data type, remember char is fixed length. So by assigning a character limit of 10, the computer has to add additional 5 characters to our string to make it to 10 characters. So it will add 5 spaces to fill up that gap. Therefore, regardless of how many characters our string has, the total memory used in the system will be 10 bytes. So as you can see here, the memory usage under char will be more in this case. Now, in a different situation, let's say we change our character limit to 2 in both varchar and char, and our string is the name of a state, for example, CA for California. Now, under varchar data type with only 2 characters, the memory used will be 3 bytes. Whereas under char, our string will take up only 2 bytes of the memory. Of course, we always want to use as little space as possible to get better performance. So if our content is a fixed size and we know how many characters we need in our column, for example, the name of a state or YN like yes or no, it's better to use char. But if we have no control over how many characters we will need, for example, the name of a client, which can have a variable length, it's better to use varchar because varchar will use less memory in those kind of situations. Now let's go to my SQL workbench and write our first create table command over there.